Waitress plays piano with blind girl on a blind date, unaware her CEO dad was standing behind the door. Under the mellow glow of the late afternoon sun, the cafe breathed with a kind of quiet elegance. Its worn wooden floors, vintage sconces, and the grand piano near the window gave it the charm of a place that remembered better days. Outside, golden leaves rustled gently in the breeze, their shadows dancing softly on the window panes. Emily moved among the tables with practiced ease. Her blonde ponytail swung behind her, and the soft rustle of her apron followed every step. She was 28, graceful without trying to be, her blue eyes calm but distant. To most, she was just the waitress with the soft smile. But underneath the quiet exterior was someone who once dreamed through melodies, a girl who had studied music before life interrupted her rhythm. She wiped down a table near the front, eyes scanning briefly across the room. In the far corner, a small blind date sign sat on a reserved table, marked discreetly with a single white rose in a vase. A friend of a customer had arranged the setup, a modern twist on fate, waiting to unfold. But something else caught her eye. Near the piano, seated alone on a velvet stool, was a little girl in a pink dress. The dress had tiny white flowers along the hem, and her dark curls framed a delicate face turned slightly upward. Her small hands reached out, fingers uncertain, searching the piano keys. A soft, clumsy note rang out, then another, slightly off. She paused, then tried again, tapping a few more notes, disconnected and unsure, but curious. Emily froze mid-step, her breath caught. The girl was blind. Her eyes did not move, her gaze unfocused. But there was something in the way she tilted her head, the way her fingers hesitated and tried again, that stirred something deep in Emily's chest. She set the tray down without thinking. No one else in the cafe seemed to notice. Conversations murmured on. Cups clinked. The world moved. Emily did not speak. She simply walked toward the piano. Her footsteps were soft against the wooden floor. She approached the bench beside the girl and sat down without a word. The little girl turned her head slightly at the presence, sensing her. Emily didn't introduce herself. Instead, she placed her hands gently on the keys, a few low notes, then soft harmonies that wrapped around the child's uncertain melody like a warm blanket. The girl smiled. She tilted her head again, as if listening not with her ears but with her entire being. Emily followed her lead, adding gentle chords beneath the child's scattered notes. Together, their music began to take shape, clumsy but tender. A conversation made entirely of sound. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest and beautiful. At the other end of the room, a couple paused mid-conversation. Then another table turned. Slowly, the chatter quieted. The music, fragile and pure, held the air in stillness. The little girl let out a small laugh, her fingers finding a repeating rhythm. Emily responded with a soft counterpoint. Their duet bloomed, imperfect but whole, like sunlight through stained glass. No one knew who this child was. No one knew why the waitress had stopped working to sit beside her. But for that moment, none of it mattered. Adam adjusted the sleeves of his blazer as he stepped out of the cafe's restroom. He glanced at his watch. His blind date was supposed to start any minute now. The table was already prepared in the corner, just as his friend had promised. But before he could make his way over, a sound stopped him cold. Piano. Soft notes floating through the cafe air, uncertain at first, then gentler, fuller, like two hands finding each other in the dark. He turned toward the source and froze. There, near the window where sunlight spilled across the old wooden floor, sat his daughter, Jade. Dressed in her favorite pink dress with white flower trim, her little legs barely reached the floor. She was seated at the piano, her small hands touching the keys with familiar hesitation. But she wasn't alone. A young woman sat beside her, blonde hair tied in a neat ponytail, wearing a cafe apron. Her fingers moved with quiet grace, guiding Jade's melody with a touch that was both confident and tender. She did not speak. She simply played. and Jade was smiling. Not a small smile, not the polite kind she often offered when adults praised her for being brave or strong. No, this was different. Her head tilted, her body swaying slightly. She was leaning into the music, into the feeling of it. Adam had not seen that expression in over 2 years. Not since before his wife had died. His throat tightened. He remained behind the doorway, hidden from view, his hand resting on the frame as though he needed something to keep him upright. Emotion rose without warning. The past 2 years had been a silent war of holding things together for Jade, for work, for everything. He had not expected a moment like this to come from a stranger in an apron sitting beside his daughter. The music swelled just enough to fill the room, then tapered off into a hush. For a breathless second, no one moved. Then, as if released from a spell, the cafe erupted in soft applause. Adam took a breath and stepped forward. His voice was quiet, rough at the edges. "Thank you. You just brought her back to life. And me too." The waitress blinked in surprise, rising to her feet quickly, her face flushing. "I am so sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just saw her sitting alone and—" "You didn't intrude," he interrupted gently. He gestured to the reserved table in the corner. "My friend just texted. Something came up. They canceled. I know this is unorthodox, but would you mind sitting with us? Not for me, for her." He nodded toward Jade. The little girl was still touching the piano keys, head tilted, smiling. The waitress hesitated. "Oh, I'm still working," she said, reaching for the tie of her apron. Then Jade's small voice broke in. "Please don't go." She had turned slightly in their direction, her hands outstretched toward the woman. The room quieted again. The waitress looked down at the child's hand. Her own hand hovered above it for a second. Then she untied her apron and folded it slowly, setting it on the bench. "All right," she said softly. "Just for a little while." Adam smiled and pulled out a chair at the reserved table. First names were exchanged over clinking glasses of water. "I'm Adam," he said. "Emily," she replied, brushing a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear. Jade, as usual, chimed in proudly. "I'm 4.5. Laughter rippled between them. Emily sat straighter than she expected to. She felt her heart racing, but not from nerves. Something about the way Adam looked at Jade, and the way Jade had clung to her hand, made her feel a strange sense of belonging. Unfamiliar, but warm. The three of them sat together, not as strangers thrown together by accident, but as people gently invited into a moment none of them had planned. It was not the blind date Adam had expected. It was better. Candlelight danced gently on the table between them. The buzz of the cafe had softened into a cozy hum. Outside the window, dusk draped the city in gold and gray. Inside, three strangers sat together like old friends, their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. Jade sat between Adam and Emily. Her pink dress puffed slightly as her legs swung beneath the chair. She tapped her spoon lightly against the rim of her water glass, finding a rhythm only she could hear. Emily smiled, watching her closely. "My mom used to sing to me," Jade said suddenly. Her voice was clear, confident. "She said I had her ears. Daddy says that too." Adam looked down at his cup. His fingers tightened around the handle. Emily glanced at him but said nothing. "But Daddy doesn't sing," Jade added. "He doesn't smile much either. Only a little bit. Like today, when there's piano." Emily looked up. Adam gave a quiet chuckle, eyes soft. "She's not wrong," he said. Emily stirred her tea. "I used to play every day," she said. "I wanted to teach music, especially to kids like Jade, but things changed." Adam didn't push further. He simply nodded, sensing the weight behind her words. "What stopped you?" he asked gently. Emily took a breath. "I lost someone. After that, music felt like too much." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was shared. Jade, sensing the shift in mood, began tapping her spoon like she was playing keys. Emily smiled again. "You have good timing, Jade. That rhythm is spot on." Jade grinned. "I like pretending I'm playing. I remember where the high notes are, even if I can't see them." "You don't need to see the notes," Emily said softly. "Sometimes, your heart knows where they are before your fingers do." Jade tilted her head thoughtfully. Then she reached into the small pocket of her dress and pulled out something soft and folded. It was a delicate ribbon, pale and worn with time. "This was from my mom," Jade said. "She gave it to me before she went to the hospital. I kept it in my dress for a long time." Emily leaned forward, surprised. "It's beautiful, Jade." Jade held it out. "But today, I want you to have it, so you don't feel sad anymore." Emily froze, her hand hovering, her throat tightened unexpectedly. "You don't have to," she whispered. "I want to," Jade said. "You played with me, you made Daddy smile, and you listened." Emily reached out, slowly, and took the ribbon. Her fingers trembled slightly. "Thank you," she said. "This means more than you know." She bent down and wrapped her arms around Jade, pulling the little girl into a soft, quiet hug. It was the first time in a very long while that Emily had felt truly needed. Adam watched them, his heart full. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The music had stopped, but something else had started in its place. Something deeper. Something real. The evening breeze was gentle as they stepped outside the cafe. Streetlights cast a soft golden glow on the cobblestone path that led toward a nearby park. Adam offered to drive Emily home, but she smiled and shook her head. "Let's walk a little," she said. "It'll help Jade unwind. Plus, this part of town is beautiful at night." Jade, still holding Emily's hand, bounced slightly as they strolled. The little girl seemed lighter, freer, like music still lingered in her steps. Emily carried her shoes in one hand while Jade walked barefoot on the grass-lined edges of the sidewalk. The park was quiet. Only a few families remained, their laughter blending with the soft instrumental music playing from nearby speakers. Trees rustled overhead, and the sound of water trickling from a small fountain gave rhythm to their slow pace. Adam and Emily fell into an easy conversation. Their voices were low, intimate, as if the world had paused to listen. Emily shared her past, something she rarely did. She told him about the accident, about the hospital stay that ended with doctors quietly telling her she might never be able to have children. "I was engaged at the time," she said, eyes fixed on the path ahead. "He left a week later, said he needed a future that included a family, and I haven't really let anyone in since." Adam listened, saying nothing at first. Then, in a quiet voice, he told her about his wife. She died giving birth to Jade. It was sudden. We thought we had more time. He paused, glancing at his daughter walking ahead. "I never thought I'd love again. I buried that part of myself. I've never even brought someone close to her. Until today." The words hung between them, neither heavy nor dramatic, but honest. Emily looked at him, touched by the weight of his trust. They walked on in silence, but the silence was warm, not awkward. It was the silence of two people who understood that healing didn't always need words. Just then, Jade tripped over a raised brick in the walkway. She stumbled, and Emily instinctively reached out, catching her just in time. She knelt down beside the girl, brushing off her dress and checking for scrapes. Jade was fine, giggling softly, but Emily stayed on one knee. She reached up and pulled the pink ribbon from her ponytail. Her golden hair fell in soft waves around her face. "Let me show you something," Emily said gently. She wrapped the ribbon around Jade's small wrist and tied it into a neat little bow. "This," she said, "is your new secret power. When the wind blows, the ribbon will flutter. If you feel it moving, it means you're near something uneven. You'll know when to slow down or change direction. Jade touched the ribbon, her fingers carefully tracing the silky fabric. It's like my ears have a new eye, she whispered with a grin. Adam stood silently a few feet behind them. He watched the entire exchange, his chest rising with a quiet breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His eyes welled with tears, but he blinked them away. What Emily had done was more than kind. It was intuitive, human, deeply moving. She didn't pity Jade, she empowered her. The walk continued slowly, with Jade's little pink bow swaying gently in the breeze. When they reached Emily's apartment building, Adam insisted on walking her to the door. As they stood there, under the soft porch light, something shifted between them. Emily hesitated at the step, then turned toward Adam. She took his hand, guiding it to Jade's. "These are the hands that protect you every day," she told the little girl. "Tonight, would it be okay if he also held mine for a moment?" Jade didn't answer. Instead, she reached out with both arms, clasping their hands together in hers. Her smile said more than words could. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. There was no past pain, no distance, only the touch of three hands, joined by something simple and real. The pink ribbon on Jade's wrist fluttered gently in the night air. A week after their serendipitous evening, Emily's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hi, it's Adam," came the familiar voice. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all," she replied, her voice softer than she expected. "I keep seeing you at that piano, beside Jade," he said. "She hasn't stopped talking about it. She asked me this morning, when can I learn again?" Emily smiled to herself. "I was wondering," Adam continued, "would you be willing to teach her, just once a week? At the cafe, she really connected with you." There was a pause. Emily breathed in the quiet of her apartment. "I'd love to," she said, "but I won't take payment. Some things should never be measured in money." Adam didn't argue. That Sunday afternoon, the cafe felt like a different place. Regular customers seemed to sense something special was happening. Conversations quieted, laptops closed. People shifted their chairs subtly to listen. Jade, in her pink dress, sat upright at the piano bench. Emily sat beside her, gently holding her small hands. "Touch the keys like you're finding echoes," Emily whispered. "Each note leaves a trail. Follow it." Jade pressed a key, her fingers tentative. "That's the moon," Emily said, smiling. "Now try the wind." She guided Jade to another key. The little girl tilted her head, listening intently. Emily continued, describing notes as textures, feelings, seasons. Jade soaked it all in, her face glowing with curiosity. She especially loved the notes A and E. Each time she hit them, her smile widened. "You're picking this up faster than I did at your age," Emily told her. Across the room, Adam leaned against a wooden beam, recording quietly with his phone. He didn't want to intrude. The moment belonged to them. Later, as Jade rested in the small terrace outside the cafe, sipping warm milk, Emily sat beside her, gently fixing a curl behind her ear. Inside, Adam approached the counter to pay. A woman standing near the bar turned toward him. She was elegant, dressed in a tailored coat with pearl earrings. A regular. Her eyes lit up in recognition. Well, she said, smiling. "Isn't this a surprise?" The tech mogul himself. "What brings you here every Sunday now? Let me guess. Someone special?" Adam chuckled politely. "Just spending time with my daughter." Emily stepped through the door just in time to catch the tail end of their conversation. She froze as she saw the woman laughing, her hand brushing Adam's arm. Adam smiled back, courteously, unaware of Emily's presence. Emily's chest tightened. The warmth from earlier cooled instantly. She turned around quietly and walked back to the piano without saying a word. She didn't hear what the woman said. She didn't need to. The image was enough. Her mind whispered old fears. He belongs to a different world. You are just a waitress with a broken dream. You can't even give him a family. After the lesson ended, Adam approached Emily with a gentle smile. Thank you again. Jade loved it. Emily nodded, distant. She's very talented. See you next week? He asked. Maybe, she said quietly, then walked away before he could respond. That night, at home, she stared at her phone for a long time. Adam had sent a message. Jade fell asleep holding the little paper piano you made her. She wanted to say thank you. Are you okay? Emily typed a reply, then deleted it. She finally sent only a simple thank you emoji. No words, no warmth. Across town, Adam sat staring at the screen, frowning slightly. He sensed something had shifted, but he didn't know what. For the first time, the thread connecting them felt fragile. And Emily, curled up in her dim room, felt it too. The sting of a world that still felt too far from hers. A misunderstanding, a moment, but enough to stir the ache she tried so hard to bury. The next Sunday arrived quietly, but the warmth from the week before had faded. Emily greeted Adam and Jade with her usual smile, but it lacked the softness he had grown used to. During the piano lesson, Emily focused intently on the keys, offering guidance to Jade in a calm but distant tone. She didn't laugh when Jade made silly sounds imitating the notes. She didn't sing along like before. Adam watched, uneasy. During a short break, Jade tugged at Emily's sleeve. Miss Emily, why don't you joke with me anymore? Emily crouched down beside her, brushing a strand of hair behind the girl's ear. I'm just a little tired, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about. But Jade wasn't convinced, and neither was Adam. After the lesson, as the cafe emptied and Jade sipped her juice, Adam stepped closer to Emily. There's something I'd like to ask, he said. Will you both come with me to get ice cream? Emily hesitated. Before she could respond, Jade clapped her hands. Yes, please. Can we, Miss Emily, please? Emily nodded, unable to resist the girl's excitement. They walked together to a small park nearby, where a handful of colorful tables dotted the stone courtyard. Adam found one near the fountain and helped Jade sit down. He leaned toward a staff member and whispered a request, then turned back to Emily. Give me 1 minute, he said. He disappeared into the shop. Emily sat beside Jade in silence. The little girl tapped the table gently, mimicking a piano rhythm. When Adam returned, he held a small box, wrapped in soft yellow fabric. He placed it gently in front of Emily. I am not great with explanations, he said, his voice low. But if one small misunderstanding can push you away, then I need a lifetime to show you the opposite. Emily looked at him, then down at the box. Her hands trembled slightly as she untied the fabric. Inside was a golden hair clip, simple and elegant. Etched onto the inside curve were the words, "You are more than enough." Her breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Before she could respond, Adam took a few steps forward. In the center of the courtyard, surrounded by families and quiet chatter, he knelt on one knee in front of Jade. The little girl blinked, tilting her head toward the sound. Jade, he said gently, if Miss Emily agrees, how would you feel if the three of us learned piano together, from now on? A few people turned to watch, sensing something special. Jade clapped her hands and reached forward. Yes, I want that. Emily stood, tears brimming in her eyes. She walked over and knelt beside Adam, wrapping her arms around Jade. The little girl laughed, resting her head between their shoulders. Emily lifted her gaze to Adam. He didn't need to say anything more. She reached out and took his hand. For the first time, there was no hesitation. Around them, the simple sweetness of the moment quieted everything. Strangers watching didn't know the full story, but they felt the sincerity, the kindness, the fragile bond mending itself in plain view. It was not a grand gesture from a CEO. It was the heart of a man who had lost love and found it again in the laughter of his daughter and the courage of a woman who taught him to feel. Emily looked at the clip still in her hand, then back at Adam. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not just for this, but for seeing me." He squeezed her hand gently. And there, in that open square, a tiny promise was made, not spoken aloud, but held between the three of them, like a song waiting to be played. The weeks that followed brought quiet, golden routines. Every Thursday afternoon, Emily came to Adam's home with a small music bag and a quiet smile. At first, she focused only on Jade's lessons, but one evening, as Jade played a clumsy version of Twinkle Twinkle, she paused and turned toward her father. "Daddy, you try too." Adam raised an eyebrow. "Me?" Emily chuckled softly. "Why not? Music is better when shared." From that evening on, their lessons became something else. Jade would play a note, Emily would echo it, and Adam would follow with a playful misstep that made Jade giggle uncontrollably. The house, once filled with long silences and soft echoes, began to carry the sound of music and laughter. Dinners turned into impromptu recitals. Mistakes became jokes. Together, they found a rhythm. One night, while they were seated at the piano bench, Jade tilted her head and said in a small, thoughtful voice, "I can't see Mommy anymore. But I think I hear a new Mommy now," in Miss Emily's voice. The room went still. Emily's breath caught. She looked down, blinking fast. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached to adjust Jade's fingers on the keys. Adam reached across the bench and gently took Emily's hand beneath the piano. He didn't speak. His touch said everything. Later that evening, just before Emily packed up to leave, Jade disappeared into her room and returned holding something wrapped in tissue paper. "For you," she said, placing it into Emily's hands. Inside was a little blue notebook, decorated with stickers and ribbon. On the front, in uneven handwriting, were the words, "My favorite music teacher." Emily pressed the book to her chest, tears in her eyes. No one had ever given her anything like that before. She smiled down at Jade, then over to Adam, who was watching silently, his eyes soft. She had never felt more seen. One evening, as they washed dishes together, Emily wiped her hands and turned toward Adam. "I've been thinking," she said, "about doing something more, something bigger." He leaned on the counter, curious. "What if we held a concert? A fundraiser for blind children? At the cafe? Maybe the same one where everything started." Adam's eyes lit up. "I love it," he said. "Whatever you need, I'll back it." "I don't want your name on it," she said quickly, gently. "Not as a sponsor, just quietly, behind the scenes." He smiled. Of course. It was a simple agreement, but in it was everything. Trust, respect, a shared purpose. And as Emily left that night, the little blue notebook tucked under her arm, she realized something had changed. She was no longer a guest in their world. She was part of it. The cafe buzzed with soft anticipation. Every table was filled, the room warm with shared expectation and quiet chatter. Paper lanterns hung from the ceiling, and a small banner above the piano read, "Concert for Light." Children in coordinated white shirts waited their turn, some holding recorders, others cradling small violins. In the back, parents held hands. In the front row, Adam sat still, his gaze never leaving the piano. In his hand, he gently rolled between his fingers the yellow hair clip Emily used to wear. Then, the host announced the final performance. And now, a very special piece, written by Miss Emily herself, played by the young girl who inspired it. "Please welcome Jade." Gasps whispered through the audience as Jade, in her signature pink dress, was carefully led to the piano by Emily. Emily wore a simple white dress, her blonde hair flowing gently around her shoulders. She knelt beside Jade. whispered a few words, then took her place just behind the bench. Jade placed her hands on the keys. Emily touched her shoulder once, and then the room fell into silence. The first notes of "Through the Silence" filled the air. Gentle, slow, and impossibly tender. It wasn't perfect. Jade missed a note, then found it again. But the emotion never faltered. Each phrase carried something unspoken, a longing, a memory, and a new hope. Tears welled in Adam's eyes. The music didn't just speak to him, it forgave him. It lifted something off his chest he didn't know he still carried. As the last note faded, the room remained hushed for a long second. Then, like a wave, applause erupted. Standing ovation. Some clapped, others wiped away tears. Emily turned to hug Jade, whispering into her ear, "You were magic." As the crowd settled, Adam stood up. Slowly, with purpose, he stepped onto the stage. He didn't speak at first, just looked at the two of them. Emily still crouched beside Jade, her arm around the child. He took a deep breath, then pulled something from his pocket. A small box. Simple. No velvet, no sparkle. "I'm not perfect," Adam said, his voice steady. "And you aren't either. But if I could choose one person to walk beside me through everything messy and beautiful in life, it would be the one who brought my daughter's smile back." He turned to Jade. "And it would be the one she listens to, even when the world goes quiet." He looked back at Emily. "I love you." He opened the box, revealing a plain silver ring. Emily didn't speak. She didn't need to. She reached out, eyes glistening, and nodded. The audience rose again, clapping and cheering. Someone whistled. Someone sobbed. But all Emily heard was the sound of Jade laughing, clapping her hands at the rhythm of love she could feel. 1 year later, the piano room was filled with gentle sunlight. On the walls were drawings, sheet music, and a large canvas painted with the words, "Listen with your heart, you'll never be lost." Emily sat cross-legged on the rug, flipping through music flashcards with 2 young students. In the corner, Jade played a soft melody, still in her pink dress, now taller but no less joyful. Adam stirred a pot in the kitchen nearby, humming the same tune Jade played. There were no grand speeches, no spotlight, only the quiet rhythm of a family that had chosen each other. And as Emily looked up, catching a glimpse of the 2 people who had once walked into her life uninvited but stayed by choice, her voice played softly in the background, a final voiceover. "I used to think broken people only knew how to stay silent, but I was wrong. Because sometimes a melody, a ribbon, or a little girl in a pink dress can teach you how to love again. With everything you are, whether you can see it or not." If this story touched your heart, imagine how many more are waiting to be told. At Kindness and Love Tales, we believe in the healing power of love, music, and second chances. If you felt the warmth of Jade's smile, the strength in Emily's kindness, and the hope in Adam's journey, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us share more beautiful stories that inspire and uplift. Click that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs a little light today. And remember, sometimes the quietest hearts play the most powerful melodies.